Hello and welcome to your English news broadcast live on ERi-TV. It's exactly 10:30 p.m. on Eritrea's local time from our headquarters at Asmara with your domestic and international news in brief. I'm Zahra Badouri, but first we'll begin with your major headlines for this hour. An announcement from the Ministry of Health. Annual meeting of members of the PFDJ in Germany. According to yesterday's report, European Union new sanctions on Belarus. In USA, countries' inflation to keep raising in the next few months its taxes. Welcome to your domestic in brief. 13 patients have been diagnosed positive for COVID-19 in tests carried out today at quarantine centers and testing stations in the central, southern, and northern Red Sea regions. Out of these, 6 patients are from quarantine centers and testing stations in Ma'akal Katama, 2 Godaif, 2 and Santa Taoto 2, Central Region. 6 patients are from testing stations and quarantine centers in Addukhala 3, Mayaimina 2, and Mandafara 1, Southern Region. And the last patient is from quarantine centers in Ginda, Northern Red Sea Region. On the other hand, 30 patients who have been receiving medical treatment in hospitals in the Southern 17 and Central 13 have recovered fully and have been discharged from these facilities. Sadly, a 55-year-old patient from the Central Region has passed away due to the pandemic. The total number of recovered patients has accordingly increased to 6,893, while the number of deaths has risen to 52. The total number of confirmed cases in the country to date has increased to 7,076. Ministry of Health, Asmara, 16th November 2021. Members of the People's Front and Democracy and Justice in southern Germany conducted their annual meeting on 13th of November. At the meeting that was conducted in a virtual format, the charge d'affaires at the Eritrean Embassy, Mr. Johannes Waldu, gave extensive briefing on the objective situation in the homeland and regional developments. Mr. Johannes also called on the nationals to strengthen organizational capacity and participation in the national affairs. The head of the Public and Community Affairs, Mr. Kahsai Tawalde, also called on the nationals to reinforce participation, as in the past, in the effective implementation of the ongoing political, diplomatic, and development activities. The chairman of the PFDJ branch in southern region, southern Germany, Mr. Al-Azhar Akaza, and the general counsel at the Eritrean Embassy, Mr. Kibrab Kasete, presented activity reports, and the presentation conducted extensive discussion on the reports presented. Mr. Takhlu Labasi, head of the Public Diplomacy and Media, also gave briefing on the objective and activity of the public diplomacy. The participants conducting and commanding the timely organization of the meeting expressed conviction to strengthen participation in the successful implementation of the national development drives. The Eritrean community in Juba, Republic of South Sudan, organized a meeting on 14th of this November aimed at strengthening organizational capacity and participation in the national affairs. At the meeting that was attended by representatives of national associations and Eritrean community, extensive discussion was also conducted on the strengths and challenges the members of the Eritrean community are facing, as well as on future programs. Speaking at the event, the chairman of the Eritrean community, Mr. Amara Takhlu, called on the nationals to support each other and strengthen their political awarenesses and unity, as well as to preserve the noble societal values and transfer them to the young generation. Commanding the participation and contribution of the nationals and national development drives, Mr. Fuad Mohammed, head of the Public and Community Affairs at the Eritrean Embassy, called for reinforced participation for a better future outcome. Up next with your global report, do stay with us for more. And on your reports on the international line, the European Union will toughen sanctions on Belarus on Monday, as reports came on November 15th and may extend them to include airlines and other involved in transporting migrants, the EU top diplomat said, as the migrant crisis on the Polish border intensifies. Europe accuses Belarus of mounting a hybrid attack by flying in migrants from countries like Syria and Afghanistan and pushing them to cross illegally into EU member Poland. Belarus has repeatedly denied the accusation. On Monday morning, Polish border guards warned migrants on other sides of the border over loudspeakers that force could be used against them if they disobey orders after Poland and Lithuania reported they stopped over 100 people each attempting to enter on Sunday alone. Arriving at the meeting in Brussels, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell told reporters that the minister would approve further sanctions on Minsk on Monday. The EU might also seek to broaden them to include airlines, travel against, and other people involved in transporting migrants to Belarus. Borrell also said that he had told the Belarusian foreign minister over the weekend that the situation on the border was completely unacceptable and that humanitarian help was needed. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko was quoted as saying on Monday that Minsk would retaliate against new sanctions imposed on it by the West. President of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, Neil Ashkery, on Sunday said that he accepts the country's inflation to keep rising in the next few months, as you find a report. His remarks came just days after the U.S. Labor Department reported that inflation accelerated in October, the biggest month raise in nearly 31 years. The latest report released by the department's Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the U.S. Consumer Price Index rose 0.9% in October alone. The largest increase in 4 months. U.S. inflation hit a 30-year high in October by rising at a 6.2% annual rate, the highest rate since November 1990. A separate survey published on Friday showed that U.S. consumer confidence hit a 10-year low in November, aimed raising inflations. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index fell to 66.8 for November, while blue market expectations of 72.4, which was the lowest since November in the year 2011. The report said that the fall in confidence was in response to raising inflation. However, about 25% of consumers complained that raising inflation had lowered their living standards, and nearly half of all households anticipated lower near income next year, according to this survey. Dear viewers, that is all for now with your domestic and international news in brief. Until we are back with some more news, stay and enjoy the rest of our programs. But until then, these were your major headlines for this broadcast in review. An announcement from the Ministry of Health. Annual meeting of members of PFDJ in Germany and meeting of nationals in Juba. European Union new sanctions on Belarus according to yesterday's reports. In USA, countries' inflation to keep rising in the next few months as expected due to statistics. That is all for now. Thanks for watching once more and have a nice one.